What's gonna happen next? At the end of 2020, a world deprived of touch and desperate for a means of escape dove into Netflix's new show, Bridgerton, a steamy Regency-era drama that dared to ask, what if Gossip Girl and 50 Shades of Grey had a 19th century baby? Around the same time, an aspiring pop star named Abigail Barlow was questioning if she'd chosen the wrong career path. After watching the show, Barlow posted a TikTok asking a simple question.
Okay, but what if Bridgerton was a musical?
What started as an unassuming 1-minute video transformed into a multi-million-dollar entity when the Unofficial Bridgerton musical propelled Barlow and her musical partner Emily Bear to superstardom. Given how big the album became, many questioned how they secured the rights to Netflix's diamond of a show. And the answer is, they didn't. Following a live concert performance of the album, Barlow and Bear were hit with a 25-page lawsuit from Netflix, suing them for copyright infringement. But this lawsuit isn't going to be the focus of this video. This is the story of how two girls went from being rejected by every major label to becoming award-winning composers overnight, and an investigation into what an artist is willing to risk in the hunt for validation.
But before we dive into this scandalous escapade, my beloved listeners, let us give a brief moment of huzzah for this video's sponsor, HelloFresh. As we enter the end of the summer season, one lord has truly stood out as the quartz of the crowd. The thing that's got everyone talking is his cooking. Somehow, each week Lord Beddington reaches into his ice chest and emerges with a fully catered meal. But this isn't the work of witchery, my beloved listeners. Rather, it's all thanks to HelloFresh. Old Fred the Butcher must be quivering in his boots, because each week HelloFresh delivers fresh, quality produce from the farm right to Lord Beddington's door. Oh, look out, Fred! Now, anyone can be royalty. So go to HelloFresh.com and use code WAITINTHEWING16 for 16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 free gifts. Again, that's HelloFresh.com and use code WAITINTHEWINGS16.
Abigail Barlow's dream of becoming the world's next big pop star might not have been dead, but it was definitely on life support. It had been roughly a year since Barlow had written any music, thanks in large part to industry professionals not giving her the time of day and a toxic relationship that caused her to lose her songwriting passion. But in many ways, 2019 was a time of liberation for the artist. Invigorated with a bold new haircut and free of the abusive ex, Barlow decided that if she wasn't going to get noticed by others, she was going to take matters into her own hands. Barlow was no stranger to performing in clubs and many a karaoke night, but with the constant stream of beats and melodies swirling around in her head, the best performance space was on TikTok. Instead of waiting to get booked or singing to a limited audience, TikTok meant that she had a stage available at arm's reach, populated with millions of people literally 24 hours a day. Things really popped off when All About That bass singer Meghan Trainor heard Barlow's song Trust Issues and invited her to collaborate at the studio. Just a slight problem. That was in February of 2020. Due to COVID, the recording session stopped, and Barlow was forced to dive back into TikTok. Each new video offered a peek into the process of an aspiring songwriter, experimenting with new sounds, fighting self-doubt, and above all else, finding her voice. From January to June, Barlow wrote and posted roughly 50 new songs, and as a result, her following grew. In the middle of 2020, Barlow started writing an original musical that seemed to be heavily influenced by the Tom Kitsch show Next to Normal. And that's when she was introduced to Emily Bear. At just 19 years old, Bear had already achieved what many of us could consider to be the ultimate dream by getting to sing Mulan on the Disney Channel in 2016. I mean, sure, she also started playing piano when she was 2, was on Ellen when she was 6, and got taken under the wing of Michael Jackson's producer Quincy Jones when she was 8, but really that's all small potatoes compared to this.
Your turn.
On paper, Barlow and Bear seemed like total opposites, and yet the two both loved musical theater. And they were both sick and tired of having the doors repeatedly shut in their faces. Soon enough, the two teamed up to work on Barlow's musical. And then, the project just fizzled out. Both being independent producers, the two stayed busy. Bear attempted entering the pop world with her songs Just Leave and FOMO, while Barlow shifted her attention towards a new song called Heartbreak Hotel. It used to be that anytime an artist would release a new song, they would basically be dead in the water if they didn't have a label to promote them. But when Barlow released Heartbreak Hotel, her following had skyrocketed so much that it helped the song reach number 23 on the iTunes pop charts the day it dropped. The next day, it broke the top 10 and hit 200,000 streams on Spotify. Things finally seemed to be happening. But then, as is often the case with online creators, the massive boom quickly led to an inevitable decline. Barlow's growth on TikTok slowed down massively, and she was still getting turned down by major record labels. Soon, her parents, who'd been supporting her financially the entire time she'd been in Los Angeles, told her it was time to find a real job because they just couldn't help anymore. Once again, Barlow was stuck.
And I'm so worried, like I have this pit in my stomach that was my big break, and then that's all that is ever gonna be of my music, and it terrifies me.
In March of 2020, the Broadway League announced that all 41 theaters in New York City were going to be shut down for 4 weeks. And then 4 weeks soon turned into the theaters weren't going to open again anytime soon. But that August, a 1-minute TikTok appeared called Ode to Remy. This stupid little meme would open the creative floodgates for hundreds of performance-starved artists. It didn't take long until the premise for a full-blown musical based on the 2007 film Ratatouille went global. Some users made costumes, others wrote powerful new ballads, and others even choreographed full dance routines. In January of 2021, a real Broadway production company named Seaview persuaded Disney into letting them stage a limited virtual run of the TikTok-created musical, all of which would be used as a fundraiser for the Actors Fund, now known as the Entertainment Community Fund. As Abigail Barlow watched the show, her friend suggested, if you're getting stuck, maybe you should try something like this. When people weren't pitching Ratatouille songs, they were most likely watching intense ceiling chess matches or questioning what happened to Carol Baskin's husband. By January of 2021, Netflix had more than 192 million subscribers, and over 82 million of them were obsessed with a new show called Bridgerton, a romantic drama following two elite families trying to wed off their daughters in the 1800s wedding market. The eldest daughter of the Bridgerton family, Daphne, has trouble finding a husband, thanks to an overbearing brother scaring off all of these potential suitors. So, she turns to Simon, the Duke of Hastings, and a man who keeps getting hounded by these marriage-hungry mothers, to start this fake courtship. But things get complicated when Daphne and Simon start to develop real feelings for each other. Fandoms have always been an integral part of Netflix's success, and when it came to Bridgerton, fans were more active than ever before. TikTok became a posh and super horny landscape of fan edits, scene recreations, and clips making fun of how complicated things were in the 1800s. With its lush cinematography and a crucial social commentary told in a fairy book world, Bridgerton lit a creative spark in Barlow. The scene that really caught her attention involved a man lamenting the fact that he couldn't be with his true love, who was another man. In it, he says,
"You have no idea what it is like to be in a room with someone you cannot live without, and yet still feel as though you are oceans apart."
Barlow took the line and restructured it to be sung by the lead Bridgerton, Daphne, in a song called Daphne's Song.
Am I the one to blame when we're dancing in the same room and you're an ocean away?
Right?
After getting sent a copy of Daphne's Song, Emily Bear grabbed her keyboard at 2 a.m. and started orchestrating a backing track for it. And then they were off to the races. Within days, people were creating playbill covers, choreographing dances, and staging their own scenes. In order to increase engagement and tap into the collaborative spirit that fueled Ratatouille, Barlow released a version of Burn For You that people could duet along with. From Bridgerton actors to the author of the original books, it looked like everyone involved with the series loved the online musical. However, unlike Ratatouille, where the songs were all written by other users, the songwriting for the Unofficial Bridgerton musical only came from Barlow and Bear. Their writing process didn't hesitate to tear down the wall between audience and creator. Sensing they had lightning in a bottle and wanting to strike while the iron was hot, Barlow and Bear explored avenues to record a full-length album. All of a sudden, the record labels were lining up to court them. Barlow and Bear knew that they needed to release a record fast, and wanted to be the owners of their own masters and publishing, something that none of the record labels could guarantee. And so, they decided to do what they'd been doing for the last few years. They'd produce the record on their own. People were shocked that the pair somehow got permission from Netflix to release an official album like this, to which Barlow responded,
We now have an entire team of people around us, including agents and lawyers. And because of that, we were able to get Netflix's blessing to release the concept album, knowing full well that it is classified as a fan-made creation. And when you think about it, Emily and I technically created a work of fan fiction based on this show. And you guys are part of the big reason why they are okay with us releasing it. Because you love it so much, and it's based on their TV show. Keep on asking us questions.
This wasn't exactly true. Sure, Barlow and Bear's lawyers initially asked Netflix for their blessing in March of 2021, but according to the company, they didn't respond until June, 2 months after the album was already recorded. What's more, Barlow and Bear's lawyers sought a blessing not just for the album, but also for a live stage performance. Much like Ratatouille, Barlow and Bear wanted to stage a one-off concert as a fundraiser for out-of-work theater workers, this time in the United Kingdom. So now, Netflix was in a tricky spot. The company wanted to avoid any possible competition with their own live Bridgerton event, the Bridgerton Experience, but they also didn't want to oppress the expression of two self-acclaimed Bridgerton megafans. And so, Netflix made a deal, telling Barlow and Bear's lawyers that the company wasn't going to approve or authorize the album or the charity performance, but they also weren't going to stand in the way. As August rolled around, Barlow and Bear's representatives told Netflix that the UK charity performance wouldn't be happening, but that the Bridgerton album would be released on iTunes the following month. Once the album was released, Barlow and Bear intended to then shift their focus towards original work, thus avoiding being branded the Bridgerton Girls. A few weeks later, Barlow and Bear performed a 6-song Bridgerton set at Brooklyn's Elsie Fest, a music festival founded by actor Darren Criss. Considering Criss himself started out making parody musicals with Team Star Kid, it only made sense that he'd become friends with the duo. On September 10th, 2021, the album for the unofficial Bridgerton musical officially dropped on iTunes, and it soared to number 1 on the iTunes pop charts in just an hour and a half. The next week, Barlow and Bear again teamed up with Darren Criss to perform a song from the musical live at the Kennedy Center Honors. From record sales to brand deals to selling an official songbook, the following months were an all-encompassing blur as the unofficial Bridgerton musical empire continued to grow. The momentum propelled Barlow and Bear into November, where they performed their Bridgerton songs again at another live concert in London, and they even launched a full-blown campaign to get the Bridgerton album nominated for a Grammy. Following the news, Netflix once again reached out to Barlow and Bear's representatives to remind them not to stage any live performances of the songs. Come awards night, it seemed highly unlikely that Barlow and Bear would walk away with the trophy. Less than 5% of composers in America are female, a fact that was certainly felt on this night. Add in the fact that their competition included Stephen Schwartz and Andrew Lloyd Webber, and their fate seemed sealed. Then the envelope was opened.
And the Grammy goes to the unofficial Bridgerton musical.
This is really for all of my fellow female producers, composers, engineers.
Dream really big, chase them, and they might just come true. Thank you.
Following the Grammy win, Barlow and Bear's representatives suddenly became cold and demanding. On June 7th, 2022, Netflix was contacted with the news that Barlow and Bear were going to perform the unofficial Bridgerton musical live in concert at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. on July 26th. Taken aback, Netflix started questioning how the show was going to be marketed, and if it was going to be held for charity. According to Netflix, Barlow and Bear's representatives told them that they were no longer going to ask for permission and didn't want to discuss anything further. 1 week later, on June 15th, the Kennedy Center show was publicly announced. Produced by AMP Worldwide, the show was slated to be a star-studded event. Barlow and Bear then announced a second concert performance for later in the year at the Royal Albert Hall in London. According to Netflix, they repeatedly offered Barlow and Bear a license that would have allowed them to stage both of these shows. It also would have allowed them to continue distributing the album and even open the door for more shows down the road. But Barlow and Bear declined. On July 20th, Netflix took the first step towards legal action by sending a formal demand letter objecting to the Kennedy Center and Royal Albert Hall performances. That makes it all the more confusing that Barlow and Bear later released a graphic with the bottom reading, "Bridgerton is a trademark of Netflix. Used with permission." And when it came to light that the concert was charging up to $150 for tickets, with none of the proceeds going to charity, the unofficial Bridgerton musical effectively became competition to Netflix's live Bridgerton experience, which had been running in DC since March. On July 26th, 2022, the fairy tale came true for Barlow and Bear. And on July 29th, so did the nightmare. After the concert went on, despite Netflix's objections, the company filed an official petition suing Barlow and Bear on 4 counts, including copyright infringement.
Well, it's a petition or a complaint, and the thing to remember with those is that it's written by the attorneys for one of the parties, so it's going to be written in a light that's kind of most favorable to their interest.
Now, when it comes to legal stuff, I am like the least qualified Brendon to be talking about this, So I reached out to another Brendon who happens to be a lawyer and a member of the WITW Patreon.
In the defendants, in their answer, what do you think they're most likely gonna rely on, potentially?
The defendants in this case could seek their use of the material is in line with the fair use doctrine.
Writing a parody musical is a precarious tightrope walk legally. Fair use is essentially a way to use copyrighted material without getting permission from the copyright holders. For example, a Harry Potter musical, the show that skyrocketed Darren Criss to viral fame during his time with Team Star Kid, was able to be staged because A, it was poking fun at the original Harry Potter characters in a new original story, and B, Star Kid agreed not to charge admission, so as not to hurt Warner Brothers' bottom line. In the case of Ratatouille, the producers were able to sidestep fair use completely by getting direct permission from Disney for their one-night-only performance. They were able to get permission because A, it was agreed upon that they would only stream the musical for 3 days, and B, it was a charity event for the Actors Fund, an organization that Disney has a great working relationship with. The Unofficial Bridgerton musical is in a complicated spot, because technically it doesn't count as a parody. It isn't making fun of or commenting on the source material. Barlow Bear took almost all of the most memorable moments from the series, including verbatim dialogue, and by using the words Bridgerton in their title, it could potentially create consumer confusion and negatively affect Netflix's bottom line. 3 days after the suit was filed, the reactions of the Bridgerton Netflix team, once enthusiastic, chilled, with producer Shonda Rhimes stating, "What started as a fun celebration by Barlow and Bear on social media has turned into the blatant taking of intellectual property, solely for Barlow and Bear's financial benefit." And Bridgerton author Julia Quinn going on to say, "I would hope that Barlow and Bear, who share my position as independent creative professionals, understand the need to protect other professionals' intellectual property, including the characters and stories I created nearly 20 years ago." Independent is really at the heart of this story. When questioning why they didn't take the license from Netflix, it seems like it all boils down to that one word: doing things on their own and relishing in the spoils that come from it. After getting told to give up by people in the industry, their parents, and in Barlow's case, an abusive ex-boyfriend, Bridgerton gave Barlow and Bear the validation they'd been seeking. It got them views, it got them awards, it made them millionaires. It became a drug. Instead of being a fun collaboration amongst fans like Ratatouille, Bridgerton became a vehicle for Barlow and Bear's success. Even though they said over and over that they didn't want to be known as the Bridgerton Girls, things instantly got better anytime they posted about it. So why would they stop that? The story of the Unofficial Bridgerton musical raises a lot of big questions about fandoms, social media, and the actual case against Barlow and Bear themselves. Where is the line between celebrating someone's work and stealing it? And what are we willing to risk in our own hunt for validation? As we wait to see how it plays out, it might be helpful to see what goes into making an actual parody musical. So click on this video to learn more about Team Star Kid's Holy Musical Batman.